All right, let's get right into it. For a few wild days in August 2025, the internet was absolutely convinced that a sitting US president was dead. We're going to break down exactly how this huge hoax went from just a whisper to a global firestorm.
And that's really the core question here, isn't it? This whole event is a perfect, almost scary case study in how misinformation works today. So we're going to unpack it step by step.
You've got to understand, for nearly a week, a huge number of people online were operating on a completely false reality. So let's walk through the timeline and see how a simple lack of information, a vacuum, created absolute chaos.
So, where did this all begin? Well, it didn't start with a bang or some shocking news report. It started with nothing, just silence. And that silence got people talking.
Now, for most public figures, 4 days off the grid is noticeable. But for Donald Trump, a man who basically lives on rallies, press events, and constant media attention, that kind of disappearing act is more than just unusual, it's weird. And that's what lit the first spark of suspicion.
Okay, but a president taking a few days off on its own doesn't usually cause a massive death hoax, right? No, you need something else. You need fuel for the fire. And boy, was there plenty of it just waiting around.
And this is where it all comes together, like the perfect recipe for a disaster. You had this suspicious absence, right? Then you combine that with all the ongoing public chatter about the president's health. And then you add the final piece of the puzzle, a schedule that was completely, totally empty.
Now here's what's so fascinating about how these things work. You take a real, non-life-threatening medical condition, something the White House had actually confirmed, and it becomes a building block for the hoax. Online sleuths took that fact and connected it to other little observations, bruised hands, heavy concealer, a few gaffes, and they spun it into evidence of something way, way more sinister.
And boom, this right here was the match that lit the fuse. When that screenshot of an empty schedule hit the internet, for many people, that was it. That was the confirmation they needed. I mean, in a world where every single minute of a president's day is usually planned out, a blank slate just looks like a cover-up.
And just like that, the floodgates opened. This wasn't some fringe theory anymore. The speculation exploded, moving from the quiet corners of the internet right onto everyone's main social media feeds almost overnight. I mean, just let that number sink in. Over 56,000 posts in a matter of hours. We're not talking about a handful of people here. This thing went viral in the truest sense of the word. By Friday night, the idea that the president might be dead was a top trending topic, and it was being fueled by this avalanche of speculation and so-called evidence. And the proof that people were sharing? Yeah, it was all fake. But it was good fake. You had these really sophisticated fakes, like that CNN screenshot making the rounds. You even had AI-generated videos claiming The Simpsons predicted the whole thing. These pieces of evidence were designed to look just real enough to fool you if you were already leaning toward believing the rumor.
And this is a classic move. You take real words from a real person, and you weaponize them. The vice president was in an interview trying to calm everyone down and say Trump was fine. But this one little phrase, "terrible tragedies happen," got clipped, taken completely out of context, and then passed around like it was some kind of secret coded message from inside the White House. So, the internet is in a complete meltdown. But then, reality starts to creep back in, and the whole thing begins to unravel, almost as fast as it started.
And the very first proof of life was just so perfectly on brand. It was classic Trump. While half the internet is holding a virtual funeral for him, he's on Truth Social posting an all-caps rant about trade policy. It was so bizarre, so mundane, and so him that it was the first real crack in the hoax. After that, the dam broke. The proof started rolling in, fast and furious. First, a journalist confirmed she'd just spoken with him for an hour. Okay, that's pretty solid. Then came the undeniable proof. Photos and videos of him leaving the White House and then showing up at his golf club, shaking hands. At that point, what can you even say? It's pretty hard to argue with a live photo.
So now that the dust has settled on all this chaos, what did we actually learn? How does something this crazy even happen? Well, it turns out it follows a very predictable pattern.
You can pretty much boil this whole thing down to a 4-step life cycle. First, it all starts with an information vacuum. Then, that vacuum gets filled with plausible kindling. In this case, worries about his health. The next ingredient, social media, acts as the digital accelerant, spreading fake stuff like wildfire. And maybe most importantly, this whole thing shows that to stop a rumor this big, you need clear, undeniable, real-world proof. A simple online post wasn't enough. People had to actually see him.
And this is the thought I really want to leave you with. This whole case study is a masterclass in just how fragile our shared sense of reality can be. I mean, if a simple 4-day absence can convince thousands of people that a president is dead, it really makes you ask, in an age of AI and instant rumors, how prepared are we for whatever the next great hoax is going to be?